This is like what we understand to be Star Wars. Like the idea that like that only came from George Lucas, that only George Lucas holds the key for what we understand to be Star Wars is just untrue. And I think the prequels are an excellent example of that. I mean, when you're hiring a director, that everyone is sitting in there waiting for George Lucas and not for the person who's going to know to hire Ralph McQuarrie, that's the problem. That's the misogyny and the problem with the auteur myth, because they're not thinking this is the person that will hire the right people and this is the person that will be able to create the lookbooks and direct people to get them to that place. They're just thinking, do you have all the answers? And the truth is that nobody does, and anybody that says they do is lying.
Hello, I'm Cinemod470, and The Acolyte is terrible.
Coming to bed, honey?
Yes, dear.
It's poorly written, it can't understand the basic progression of time, it has too much redundant, expositive, and repetitive dialogue, it can't tell a story with multiple points of view, and the characters are either inconsistent, one-dimensional, or both. Personally, I was going to skip the show entirely, but I had just wrapped up my last video around the show's premiere, and if I want to get out of the salt mines of Cyberstan, I'm going to need to add more content. The Acolyte is set roughly 80 years before The Phantom Menace, where a mysterious assassin has a grudge with multiple Jedi. It is then revealed that this assassin was a young girl named Mae, who was part of a false cult of witches with her twin sister Osha. When the Jedi came to their planet to investigate a possible vergence in the Force, they discover the twins and investigate the cult. When they discover the twins were born from the virgins, a fight breaks out which kills the witches, and the Jedi cover it up and take Osha with them to train as a Jedi, while Mae is presumed dead. Osha joins the murder investigation and discovers that Mae is training under a Sith, and later discovers that her former Master Sol killed her mother, and she kills him, joining the Sith as his new acolyte.
Once we kidnap the princess, we can force her father, King Roland, to give us the combination to the air shield, thereby destroying planet Druidia and saving planet Spaceball.
Everybody got that?
The first sign of bad writing is when characters have conversations about knowledge they already know just to clue in the audience. And this redundant and repetitive exposition is layered throughout the series.
You lost your entire family. Your mothers, your sister, your village all died in the fire before Master Sol brought you into the Jedi.
You and Master Andor were friends.
Yes, I was sad to hear she came to a violent death. Indara and I saved her from a terrible fire on Brandok.
I remember.
She saw us as her protectors.
She wants to kill 4 Jedi stationed on Brandok 16 years ago. Indara, Torben, Kelnaka, and you.
I told you this planet would be safe haven for our coven.
You don't like me. You think my campaign for an external review of the Jedi is a personal vendetta.
The characters never show how they feel through body language or visual storytelling. They just explain their feelings, and when characters are not fully explaining themselves, they're being incredibly vague to force intrigue.
You speak as if you were a Jedi.
I was. A long time ago.
I've never heard of you.
It was a really long time ago.
The Old Republic cinematic trailers are great examples of the show don't tell rule. They had the bare minimum dialogue and yet managed to tell a story, showcase character relationships and personalities through the visuals and physical acting. I'm not the biggest fan of The Force Awakens, but somehow Rey's introduction was better. We get an understanding of Rey's daily routine and what her goals are without having any spoken dialogue or exposition. When it comes to Osha, all her goals and desires are explained verbally, mostly by other people. We never have a binary sunset moment with her, and I don't just mean have a character looking at a sunset, I mean we never get that visual of witnessing her character wanting more than she has been given. We get a snippet when Osha watches Kalnaka working on the speeder with fascination, which ties into her future mechanic occupation. But that's all we get. Her character motivations, as well as the side characters and antagonists, are explained to the spectators instead of shown, and they're not always consistent, but we'll get into that later. One example is Sol stating to Indara that he has a connection to Osha, even though all the spectators have seen is him looking at her from a distance and offering her a lightsaber after a brief introduction. But that's the thing, everyone has to say what they're thinking and feeling because the directors and writers can't think of a clever way to show what the characters are thinking and feeling. The writers have also shown a clear lack of ability to tell a story with multiple points of view. When Osha is arrested for Mae's crime and the prisoners escape, Osha lets one of the prisoners out, even though we just established that he had a parasite that was used on violent offenders. That prisoner then goes on a rampage and steals the last escape pod, and Osha is left on her own. It was intended to be her save the cat moment, to make her appear selfless to the audience and the Jedi, and is viewed by the Jedi as a good deed. But honestly, that blunder makes Osha look stupid. If she didn't want to leave him behind to die, fine, she could have just dragged him to the escape pod. In reality, Osha should appear as the most dangerous person in the galaxy, since the escaped prisoners all say that she broke them out of prison and there were no other witnesses to dispute that, aside from the madman who had a parasite to keep him unconscious. And the fact that Osha would take off the parasite after being told it was used on dangerous criminals and it messes with their brain shows Osha being incompetent. There are also multiple instances where characters have knowledge about the plot when they shouldn't. Like Vanestra stating that Osha's believed involvement in Endara's murder needs to be kept quiet, yet the prisoners accompanying Osha all know why she's with them. When Sol realizes Osha is actually Mae, he immediately knows Osha is with Qimir and doesn't go down to look for her. And Qimir somehow knows about how Osha was falsely accused and that she was maybe starting a relationship with Jackie. And speaking of points of view, the writers mishandle characters by not giving them enough depth. Though interviews with the creator Leslie Headland illustrate there being some deep ideas, they don't show on screen. When Mae kills Andara, we don't have any emotional connection to her. We don't spend enough time to get to know her, or why we should care that she died. And they wasted a good actress to be fridged. They might as well have used a stunt performer to play the role. The fight scene might have actually been better to look at. Karnaka, the first on-screen Wookiee Jedi, also gets fridged because the show didn't have the budget for a fight scene, a budget of $180 million. And when we do see him fight, Karnaka is severely underpowered, since Wookiees are known for their intense strength. And it could have been interesting to learn about how a species that is known for their intense emotions struggle with keeping a life of discipline. Torben just wants to go home. That's about it. That's his whole deal. We don't get any more details. He doesn't have any family he wants to get back to, or an assignment he would prefer to do. He just wants to go home. And Torben probably suffers the most in the show. He gets his mind dominated and physically mutilated, and neither add to his character motivation. He then spends 10 years in deep meditation, gets terrible hair and makeup to make him look old, and then kills himself with poison when Mae asks him to. Jecki and Yord are the two constant side characters, and they are one-dimensional. Yord is the tough guy who follows the Jedi code to a T, and Jecki is young and tech-smart, and that's all we get aside from how brutally they get murdered. Yord is presented to be an old friend to the protagonist Osha, and Jecki is the new apprentice to Osha's old master Sol. Endara, Karnaka, and Torben were all the first Jedi that Osha met. But none of them expand their relationships in any meaningful way that makes the audience care about them when they die. And finally, there's Sol, played by Lee Jong-jae, and he puts in the most amount of effort in this entire cast. I mean, he learnt English for this role. He's introduced as a Qui-Gon Jinn kind of Jedi, as he follows the code but also strays away from it because he has the self-awareness to know its imperfections. But as the series progresses, the writers paint his actions, though well-intentioned, in an unfavourable light, and they constantly undercut him to portray those actions as a justified reason for his death. When we first see him, he is the loving father figure who cares for Osha's well-being and wants her to reconcile her feelings with her sister. And by the final episode, all those paternal instincts are absent, and all he cares about is proving that Osha and Mae were born from a virgins, and he lets Osha kill him while the confirmed Sith Lord is still alive and standing behind her. And did I mention that this is a murder mystery show? Because it's not. Sure, there's murder, but the characters don't really solve any mysteries, since the answers are revealed not from finding clues and asking questions, but via force visions, flashback episodes, and bad exposition. Attack of the Clones had a better mystery plot.
Apathy is death.
Apathy is death.
Statement: apathy is death.
When immersing an audience in fiction, the tiny details such as time, distance, clothes, or visual effects can influence how much they care about what they're watching. Time and distance are important for immersion, world building, and tension, especially for a murder mystery, and the writers either don't understand these concepts or don't care to. Osha has no alibi for the murder, but is believed to have managed to get from one part of the galaxy to the next in the span of at most 12 hours, and no one asks questions, when hyperspace travel has been depicted as something that takes days to make. And this isn't the only instance of hyperspace inconsistency. The Jedi managed to capture the escaped prisoners before Osha freezes to death. Mae, Qimir, and the Jedi managed to get to Kalnaka's hideout around the same time, even though the Jedi had to stop by Coruscant first. Sol and Mae get through a 3-hour trek and remain on the ship for what looks like a day, yet Qimir and Osha are already on a new planet. And just as Sol leaves, the Jedi from Coruscant arrive. And it's not just hyperspace, it's real time as well. How did Osha get to Torben before the rest of the group? Did they take the scenic route? They were all going to the same place and knew there was a major situation. Why wouldn't they have taken the fastest route? When Osha stuns Mae, she wakes up within 10 minutes completely conscious. Yet when Sol is stunned, he's out long enough for Mae to talk to Osha, have a brief battle, cut her hair, and change her clothes. In episode 1, a fire starts while Osha is working on the outside of the ship, in a vacuum.
How did this happen?
That's a very good question.
Osha then uses a fire extinguisher to cut off the fire's oxygen, in a vacuum.
That just raises further questions.
Now, defenders of the Acolyte have been saying that this is an invalid criticism, as fire appearing in Star Wars space is nothing new. But usually when we see it, it is during a climactic battle, or during some great visual spectacle, so the audience is enjoying the scene too much to really be bothered by it, which is what we call suspension of disbelief. However, the reason I want to draw attention to this scene, specifically the mass outrage of the scene, is to illustrate that most of the audience's disbelief is no longer suspended, which is pretty bad considering we're 10 minutes into the first episode. And if that didn't break people's immersion, it was Mae not changing her appearance when her identity is discovered. I mean, Christ! Her clothes make her the most conspicuous assassin ever. Or when the characters never change their clothes to match the environment's temperatures. Or when Mae cuts her hair with a lightsaber and Sol doesn't smell it burning. Or when these trees cut with a lightsaber fall in the opposite direction of the angle it was cut. Or when the child actors who are supposed to play identical twins don't look identical because Leslie Headland couldn't tell them apart.
I actually auditioned several identical twins, and it was, I cut them together in making the decision. And with identical twins, it was very difficult to tell them apart, really to track those types of the performances that you're talking about, the differentiation between the two of them.
It's the little details that cause the death by 1,000 cuts, or in this show's case, 1,000 cuts and 9 deep stab wounds.
It's definitely not a new trope to have bad twin and the good twin, and then they switch places, and then they switch back. Like, that's a pretty, I would say, reliable way of telling a thematic story, utilizing twin characters.
Osha and Mae are not characters, they are tools, whose motivations bend to whatever the plot demands. Which causes Osha to lack agency because she makes no decisions for herself, and Mae lacking a brain because she can't make any consistent or intelligent decisions. Osha and Mae are living with their mothers and their witch coven, hiding on a faraway planet. Osha doesn't want to be a witch, and after meeting the Jedi, she instantly wants to become one, while Mae wants to be a witch and believes the Jedi to be evil. Osha and Mae are the only children raised on the outskirts of the galaxy, not knowing any other way of life or thinking. Yet somehow Osha thinks differently to Mae and their mothers, and we never see or have any explanation as to why. How about instead of what was provided, we witness Osha trying to play with other children who stay at the fortress, but they keep their distance for some unexplained reason. Or Osha finds the magic that the witches use to be unsettling or evil because it's mainly about hurting and controlling people. And as she's out wandering the forest, she's attacked by pirates who are out to harvest resources from unexplored planets, only to be saved by Sol and the Jedi. They then take the time to make sure Osha is unharmed and offer to escort her back to her home. As they travel, Osha asks them questions about the Jedi Order and what its values are, while Sol asks questions about Osha and her family. Now we have a real connection between Sol and Osha built around trust and heroism, not plot convenience. And Osha begins to question whether her mother's opinions on the Jedi were actually correct. And this argument between Osha and her family has more weight. When we see present-day Mae, she is beginning her quest for revenge, and how she goes about it causes some cognitive dissonance.
A Jedi doesn't pull her weapon unless prepared to kill.
Mae considers the Jedi to be evil, and yet she puts other people in danger to get a killing blow. Can she or the writers really claim that she's justified when in order to achieve her goals, it requires harming innocent bystanders? And when her face is seen, she leaves the bartender alive because she sees he has a child, who he didn't take to a safe location when the fighting started. And why would you have a child in a bar at all? This is Mae's save the cat moment, so now there's an argument that there's still good in her, and it's just cheap. Just because someone leaves one person alive, it doesn't undo killing someone and assaulting others.
I spared her life.
You let one of them go, but that's nothing new. Every now and then a little victim's spared because she smiled, because he's got freckles, because they begged. And that's how you live with yourself. That's how you slaughter millions. Because once in a while, on a whim, if the wind's in the right direction, you happen to be kind.
When Osha wants to leave the Coven to become a Jedi, their mother Coral forces Mae to give in to her anger, and in her volatile state she destroys the door controls and tries to burn Osha to death to keep her from leaving. That's very psychopathic behaviour, and causes Osha to have deep resentment for the rest of her life to the point where she had to leave the Order before her training was complete. And yet, when they meet again for the first time, she hesitates to stun Mae and misses. It looks like she shifted her aim just before she fired. Now, if it was a regular blaster, I'd understand Osha having mixed feelings about killing her twin, but the blaster is permanently set to stun, and Mae's known behaviour portrays her as a clear psychopath, since she tried to kill Osha when they were children to keep her from leaving their home. When she gets back to Coruscant, Osha gives up on finding Mae. No idea why, especially when Mae intends to kill Sol, Osha's surrogate father. In the previous episode, Osha was motivated by revenge to confront Mae when she was accused of killing their parents and killing 2 Jedi, and one was a surrogate mother according to Sol. But Osha says she's satisfied knowing Mae's alive, the sister that tried to burn her to death. Which, for those who don't know, likely the people who wrote this crap, is one of the worst ways to die. Osha should have the biggest motivation for arresting Mae. Mae believes the Jedi to be evil after witnessing Sol kill her mother, and even goes as far as to kill 2 of them and wants to kill more. And yet, after finding out Osha is alive, Mae decides to switch sides and turn herself over to the Jedi. Then, in the next episode, she reverts back to her previous motivation, fights the Jedi, and doesn't even try to surrender. Mae maintains the belief that the Jedi are evil, even though moments ago, Sol risked his life to save her from being killed by her master multiple times. And in each confrontation, they actively avoided using lethal force. After witnessing Qimir kill 7 Jedi, 2 who were her friends, Osha stops Sol from killing him when he finally has the upper hand. Why? When the show was explicit in stating that Osha left the Order because she couldn't move past her resentment of her sister. Instead, she sacrifices her droid, who she apparently has a great deal of love for, by planting him on Kymir's back for him to be eaten by the wildlife. Again, why? Because Qimir is saying that Sol has some hidden darkness? This man has been lying since they first met, and she's gonna take his word for it? The Titanic had more integrity than this guy. When Mae and Osha finally have a moment to themselves, Mae doesn't try to explain herself, try to tell Osha that she watched Sol kill their mother, or even apologize for starting the fire, since she clearly regretted it immediately. They just say random dialogue to continue the conflict and mystery for another 2 episodes. Mae then knocks out Osha and changes her appearance to trick Sol, and she does nothing. Seriously, she has multiple opportunities to kill him, and all she does is keep up the charade. Which is pretty challenging since Mae has a forehead tattoo that's pretty easy to spot if her hair shifts.
I have a rule about being constructive, so I can't ask any questions right now because all of the questions that I have right now are rhetorical and they end with the word idiot. Do you know what a rhetorical? No, of course you know what that is. You're an idiot.
Also, she would be terrible at mimicking her sister since they've been separated for 16 years. And Mae wouldn't know how Osha interacts with Sol. And she uses a lightsaber to cut her hair, which will leave singe marks and the smell of burnt hair. Why doesn't she just use her knife? After witnessing Qimir kill most of her friends and waking up on a mysterious island on unknown planet, she doesn't take the opportunity to swim to the ship or take out Qimir. Osha decides to hear him out instead, even though the whole reason she left the Jedi Order is because she couldn't let go of the resentment of Mae after she burned her family alive. According to Leslie Headland, the reason Osha doesn't kill Qimir is because he seduced her with his naked body.
I was always really hit by Obi-Wan's line in A New Hope when he says Vader was seduced by the dark side. That made me feel weird because I was a kid and I didn't really understand what that word meant. And then later when I did, I was like, what's he talking about? So with the way that someone is turned to the dark side or someone joins the Sith, to me, it's all about seduction. It's all about appealing to the part of that person or the thing that person wants the most.
As he begins to untie a belted knot from around his waist, she straightens up for a better look. He begins to undress, revealing a prominent scar on his well-toned back. Dropping his billowy-legged hakama pants, he steps forward with the sunlight accentuating his taut muscles.
Again, this man has been lying to Osha since they first met. Just killed 2 of her friends, tried to kill her and her sister, and she wanted to feed him to giant forest bugs. And by the final episode, they're just walking together like casual acquaintances and holding hands like possible lovers. Anakin and Padme's romance was more believable.
And I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them.
To be angry is to be human.
Ignoring the 1.8 meters of Sith, I feel like Leslie thinks she's emulating what Palpatine did to Anakin. But they already had a relationship where Palpatine would shower Anakin with praise and positive reinforcement and even gave him important positions of power. While Anakin's relationship with Obi-Wan and the Jedi was constantly being strained. When Anakin discovers Palpatine, he at least ignites his lightsaber and wants to kill him for the deception and death he's caused. But Anakin's also conflicted due to Palpatine having the secrets to keep his wife from dying, while also not trusting the Jedi's intentions. Qimir says a few words and Osha is hooked. And his description of Osha shouldn't even resonate with her or the audience, because what he says doesn't line up with anything we've seen on screen.
What you're feeling right now, this anger, this pain, this is who you are. The Jedi saw it, and that's why they threw you away.
What happened that night wasn't your fault, Sol.
And I have made peace with what happened on Brandok.
I know you have. That was a lesson you tried to teach me many times. To accept what I'd lost, and I wasn't a very good student.
Perhaps I wasn't a very good teacher.
By the end, Mae doesn't want to kill Sol anymore. She wants him to confess to the Republic. Make up your mind. Osha overhears Sol's confession and force chokes him to death, while the lightsaber in her hand turns red.
Red? That's red!
I think this conversation would have gone differently if he had told Osha that he thought her mum was turning into a smoke monster and trying to disintegrate her. But we'll get into that later. And wasn't Osha's whole deal that she wanted to let go of her hatred for those who wronged her? Yet she gave into her hatred and killed the man who wronged her. She let Qimir live after killing Yord and Jeki. In fact, wouldn't it make more sense if the roles were reversed? with Osha demanding Sol be brought to the Jedi for judgment while Mae wanted to kill him? Though, why would we have any kind of character consistency now? Also, a lightsaber doesn't turn red just because the wielder gets angry. Otherwise, Anakin's lightsaber would have turned red on multiple occasions.
Liar! You brought him here to kill me!
No!
For a crystal to bleed, you have to pour all of your anger and pain that you've accumulated over a lifetime into it. When Vader bled his lightsaber, it caused storms and earthquakes. When Dagon bled his, there was at least a shockwave. But with Osha, barely anything happens. In universe, Osha should be fully immersed in the dark side, yet she's portrayed as a tragic hero. Anyway, Osha says she's sorry for not believing Mae and forgives her for starting the fire, which almost killed her and pretty much started the chain of events that caused her whole family to die. Osha then makes a deal with Qimir that she will train under him in exchange for letting Mae go and erasing her memories so she can't reveal any secrets, which is stupid. I mean, ignoring the law-breaking ability of erasing a person's mind, Osha has no guarantee that she will be able to find Mae later, that Mae will be well treated after killing 2 Jedi, or if Mae can stay alive since her memories have regressed to when she was 8.
What do you remember?
Fire. It destroyed my home.
Your last memory is from when you were 8 years old.
Mae ends up with the Jedi and Osha ends up with the Sith. And the ending is played up as this bittersweet victory, but all the survivors are murderers. Osha and Mae's journey could have been good, but they lack consistency and intelligence to warrant any real investment.
He was trained in the Jedi arts. My only conclusion can be, he was a Sith Lord.
A Sith?
Yes,
A Sith?
Master. A Sith Lord.
Master Yoda, a Sith? We haven't seen a Sith in 1,000 years, dude. No Jedi's gone missing. No one. Why are you acting weird? What do you mean? I'm being weird? This guy's weird. See, look at him. He's weird. What's with his hair? He's weird. Tell your master he's weird. Where do you find these guys, man? I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. Okay?
Why are you acting weird? You're acting weird.
Come on. Come on, it's me. It's me. What are you talking about, dude? We haven't seen a Sith in 1,000 years, but we'll definitely investigate for you.
I always viewed the old Jedi being flawed because they wanted to use their powers to protect the galaxy and its citizens, but they became too close to the politics of the Republic and couldn't emotionally connect with individual citizens. At least, not enough of them could. This then led to their downfall as it assisted Palpatine's narrative that these strange, emotionless wizards were trying to take over the galaxy. They weren't policing people who could practice or study the Force, unless those individuals were using their powers for selfish reasons or were a threat to others. If that were the case, communities like the Lasat, the Guardians of the Wills, and the Dagoyan Order would not exist. But most of Disney Star Wars can't see the forest for the trees. They focus everything the Jedi are through the lens of their failure and ignores the fact that there was a millennium of peace, so they were doing some things right. The Jedi in the Acolyte are shown to be too emotional, specifically fearful. If it was just a few Jedi Padawans, that would be one thing, but a majority of decisions being made that affect the plot are done because characters like Torben and Dara and Vernestra are afraid. And Jedi are portrayed as being able to overcome their fear due to a lifetime of training. In fact, it's a major point of character progression in all Star Wars stories that feature Jedi as the protagonists. Padawan Torben is characterized as homesick to a ludicrous degree. Though he is a Padawan, Padawans have been shown in other stories to be brave or even arrogant. But Torben's whole deal is that he hates camping on the planet Brendok and wants to return to Coruscant, to the point where he was mind-dominated into surrendering his will to the witches and rushing off to take Osha and Mae away from their family. If the reason he wanted to leave was that he wanted to go on more exciting missions, that would be more believable. Or that after getting mind-dominated, he believed that Osha and Mae were in danger. That would be more compelling and sync with his final words being he thought he was doing the right thing. But his constant desire to return home is just ridiculous, and really paints his master Indara in a bad light, since she is responsible for his training. And after the witches die and the Jedi are returning with Osha, Indara says they should omit the more negative details from the Council. I'll get into those later, but Indara displays fear of whatever punishment Sol will receive and what will happen to Osha now that her family is dead. While both Indara and Torben are murdered, Venestra wants to keep everything secret. The reason for the secrecy is due to the Jedi's political enemies getting leverage over them. But we never take time to understand their agendas. All we get is some guy heavily hinting at Anakin's rise to power.
You project an image of goodness and restraint, but it's only a matter of time before one of you snaps. And when, not if that happens, who will be strong enough to stop him?
Which shouldn't make sense because though the Jedi serve the Republic, they aren't tied to their approval and can't make any decisions about them. That's why when Ahsoka was accused of treason, the Jedi wanted to get to her first and judge her privately, and why Palpatine had to make a story about an attempted assassination. And if it got out that a small sect of Jedi was keeping secrets from the High Council about a Force-wielding assassin, it would cause more strife between the Jedi and the Senate. Again, these Jedi are acting out of fear. Jedi do not fear. In fact, why does Venestra have any authority? She's not on the High Council, yet commands many Jedi. And her decisions cause the death of 7 and later 8. Which I doubt she'll see any punishment for, considering the standards for female characters in Disney Star Wars making bad decisions and not receiving any negative consequences. And then she covers the whole event up by blaming Sol, when she knows her old apprentice is responsible. It makes the Jedi out to be villains. The only thing anyone remembers about her is her light whip, and she only uses it once. Also, the whole cover-up shouldn't work since there are multiple witnesses who can identify who the culprit is, and account for Sol's whereabouts for each murder. The Jedi's competence as a whole is dependent solely on what the plot demands. When Mae challenges Indara to a duel out in the open, she doesn't engage until after a bunch of civilians are already assaulted. Now, this fight has 3 massive problems. The first is Indara's bag is too rigid, so the fight looks really stiff. The second is, in a lore-accurate duel, Mae's tactics wouldn't work. Mae just confronts Indara and tells her to attack. She doesn't sneak in, try to surprise, intimidate, or discombobulate her. She just stands in plain view of Indara and attacks everyone near her. The third and most egregious problem is that Indara won't end the fight immediately with her force powers or her lightsaber. I know Jedi are prone to be peaceful, but when conflict comes, they are trained to end it immediately. Whether through using the force, a lightsaber, or hand-to-hand combat if necessary. Prolonging conflict and toying with your opponent are Sith traits. Mae then takes a hostage and throws her over a balcony. By this point, Indara knows the assassin is a Force user and still doesn't use her lightsaber to end the fight. Instead, they have a brief dialogue hinting at their past history. Here's an idea, Trinity. Ask your questions after the woman who's trying to kill you and attempted to kill other bystanders has been detained. Not while you're still fighting. And this happens in most fights in the show.
You, what are you doing here?
You attack me without a weapon. Why? Your master has failed you. Tell me, who trained you? Who are you? I sense something familiar.
Indara finally pulls out her lightsaber when Mae shows some of her power, and she puts it down when Mae comments on Jedi only using their lightsaber when they are willing to kill. I get she might feel guilty about what happened on Brendok, but Mae is trying to kill her, and nearly killed someone else just because. Mae has no moral high ground. Also, lightsabers have been used as both defensive and offensive weapons, and there are canonical techniques to disarm an aggressor without killing them, whether through destroying their weapon or cutting off their hand. One of the fundamental lightsaber forms is strictly defensive and was perfected by a little-known Jedi called Obi-Wan Kenobi. Mae then throws a knife at the bartender, who didn't run away or move to a secure location. Indara stops the blade with the Force and gets stabbed. She isn't beaten through overwhelming force, superior skill, or unconventional weaponry, just a cheap shot. And so endeth the tale of Jedi Knight Trinity. The Jedi later send Yord, a knight, and his Padawan to arrest Osha, who was accused of killing a Jedi Master. When Obi-Wan was captured by Dooku, the Jedi sent an entire squad to save him, and some of them were council members. If you're going to arrest someone who was accused of killing a Jedi Master, send several Jedi Masters. Though Osha has no alibi for the murder, she is believed to have managed to get from one part of the galaxy to the next in the span of 12 hours at most, and no one asks questions. She didn't even go into hiding when witnesses saw her face. And the two Jedi don't use their mind-reading ability to try and sense Osha's guilt or ill intent. And even if she could resist, that would be an immediate red flag. Yet they threaten to use it on the Nemoidians and use it in situations where it has no chance of working, and they don't even use it on Qimir to get more information or know if he's telling the truth. But that would have revealed the twist too soon. After a witness points her out, Yord puts Osha on a common prison ship, even though it was stated they wanted to keep Osha's crime quiet. And apparently the Jedi don't do research on their prisoners and what their natural abilities are, since they are able to escape their cells super easy with barely an inconvenience. One is a cyborg who can hack droids which the ship is piloted by, and a lizard man has a natural ranged weapon attack. Also, why weren't Yord and his Padawan on the ship with Osha? If Yord and Osha were friends, wouldn't he have an invested interest in making sure she made it to the Jedi Council? And that was the only ship they came on. Did they catch a space Uber? After the prison ship crashes, they don't investigate to find Osha's remains, they just presume her dead. Despite the evidence against Osha, though it wouldn't hold up in court in real life since all they have is a witness statement and they're known to be unreliable, Sol believes Osha's claim that Mae is actually alive just because. He doesn't read her mind, or at least it doesn't look like he did, he just smiles and nods. When Mae fails to kill Torben, the Jedi report the assassination attempt, but they don't increase security or even close the sky window that she uses to go back in again. The Jedi then track down her accomplice Qimir, and don't arrest him after getting his confession, which is stupid since his dialogue shows he clearly knew more than what he was saying.
Mae, are you okay? Did the poison work?
Wait, you killed Torben without the poison. He will be so pleased. You look exactly like her.
And even if his cover story was true, he's still an accomplice to murder, and all they do is watch him, and they couldn't even do that right. When Mae escapes again, they need to convene with the not-so-high council, even though they are capable of long-range communications and know who the next target is. And during this conversation, the lawful good Jedi decide not to tell the High Council about there being a Force-wielding assassin, because they would have to tell the Senate. Again, this is problematic, and if anything, notifying the Senate about a rogue Force user should strengthen their position as an example of what happens when the Jedi don't train Force users. Qui-Gon Jinn told the High Council about Maul, and that he was likely a Sith Lord because it was kind of important that they prepare. And speaking of Qui-Gon, Ki-Adi-Mundi knows about the assassin, and yet doesn't make any mention of it in Phantom Menace. Even if you could explain it away, there are a lot of mental hoops you have to jump through. Like, how do you explain the fact that in this guy's lifetime, there were 2 Force-wielding assassins trying to kill Jedi?
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
This line about there not being any Sith in a millennium implies that they cannot conceive of the idea that they could exist. It would be like if a mate of mine said that they saw a dinosaur. I would say, that's not possible. Dinosaurs have been extinct for millions of years. But if I had encountered something that was similar to a dinosaur, though not exactly, my mate would be more believable. Apparently they wanted to use Yoda for the cameo, but he wasn't tech available in this $180 million show. Since the writers wanted someone from the prequel council in this scene, I can only assume they wanted to make the whole show about a Sith cover-up, which again, just makes them look like the bad guys.
I don't know anything. I don't know what happened. I don't know anything. You guys looking at me?
After the meeting, the Jedi search for Karnaca because he's been missing for a year and no one thought to check up on that till his life was in danger. And they track him not through the Force, a locator beacon, or just a general life sign scan. They use Basil, the beaver tracker. I feel like there's a joke about Leslie loving hairy beavers, but I'm too tired to make it. Now, Basil is the only consistent character on this show because he's consistently annoying. He can't speak basic and only Yord can speak his language, when communication is a necessity in this situation. And they constantly lose track of him to the point where they actually found Karnaca's place without Basil. In fact, the final episode shows 2 instances of Jedi tracking through the Force, so why would they need Basil? And then the Sith Qimir shows up. I'll get into more of the fight later, but I want to focus on the Jedi side of things for the moment. When the Jedi are fighting Qimir, they are clearly outmatched. Now, that's not a problem, as powerful Sith have been depicted to be able to take on multiple opponents before due to their intense combat training and learning to counter Jedi tactics. My problem is, the fight doesn't utilize all the Jedi's abilities. When their lightsabers are disabled for a short period of time, why don't they utilize their Force abilities on him? Pushing him away, flinging random debris at him to obstruct his vision or set him off balance. They just proceed to fight with their sabers and get outdueled. They don't even commune with the wildlife to try and help them. Sol spends most of the fight talking to the obvious Sith, trying to find out who they are. They're a Sith. Did the red lightsaber not tip you off?
I thought they were cosplayers. Really good cosplayers. No such thing, I'm afraid.
No matter the canon, whether through synthetic crystals or bleeding regular crystals, red lightsabers mean Sith. And when Sol has the upper hand, Osha stops him because Jedi don't attack the unarmed.
Are you dumb or just fucking special?
He should know what Sith are about and are trained to kill them when they arise. Also, the line about Jedi not killing the unarmed is stupid, since Sith don't need a lightsaber to be a threat.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Hey, take a step back. I'm putting this asshole's brains on the lawn.
What are you doing? He's not even armed.
Armed? As long as this motherfucker's breathing, he's armed.
You're not fucking executing him.
This is Lazarus. He is one of the antagonists from the Jason Statham film, The Beekeeper. He only appears in the 3rd act, and he is smarter than most of the characters in this whole bloody show. When the fight is over and Sol gets back to the ship with a disguised Mae, he notifies the Jedi about his team being dead, but he never tells them about the Sith. He just stuns Mae, goes back to Brendok, and doesn't search her unconscious body for anything that could help her escape. Turns out the Jedi fell not because Palpatine is an evil genius, but because Sol is an idiot. The way Sol explains it is that he wants to prove the virgins to the Jedi, and that he needed both Mae and Osha as evidence, even though he has both their blood samples from 16 years ago, which told him they were born from a virgins. And apparently the Jedi would never have allowed Osha to join without proof of the virgins because she was too old, even though they let her join without proof of the virgins and being too old. When Sol dies, Venestra blames everything on him to save face with the Senate, which nobody should believe since Sol notified that his team was dead, turned on his locator beacon, and Basil was with him the entire time. A good example of believable incompetence is Robb Stark from Game of Thrones. While the War of 5 Kings progresses, Robb wins every battle, but due to his inexperience and leadership, he can't properly communicate his plans with his subordinates. This causes strife within his ranks, massive casualties, and leads to his eventual demise. The knowledge-seeking and peacekeeping Jedi should not be this stupid.
Because I am such a Star Wars novice and Leslie is such an expert, I really leaned on her for backstory, information. There is a little bit of a paralyzing fear coming into something like this where it matters so much to so many people and you just don't want to upset anyone who loves it. I was like, here's an expert. I'm just completely leaning on what you say to be the case.
They're just thinking, do you have all the answers? And the truth is that nobody does, and anybody that says they do is lying.
Just like Mother Anastasia, I would be questioning the whole system of saying what is light and what is dark. I think definitely Jodie Turner-Smith would be like not existing inside of either side. You know, it's like I'm in the grave for sure.
Yeah. You are a strong and good Jedi.
You are a strong and good Jedi.
But you have natural desires you suppress. I would not keep you from what you want. I would always let you have what you need. Ask me. Ask.
Kneel. If you want your Padawan returned to his right mind, I suggest you all leave. Now, this isn't about good or bad. This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
I'm pretty sure Voldemort said something similar. The Thread Witches are the coven and family of Osha and Mae, and are representation for what happens when a police force oversteps their authority and causes violence. Even though the Jedi are depicted as peacekeepers and not aggressors, so this comparison to police violence is complete lunacy. Episode 7 is supposed to show the witches as victims of the Jedi overreaching their authority and instigating conflict, but they actually appear quite reasonable from Sol's point of view, and the witches are kind of problematic. They restrict Osha and Mae's movements, they are willing to use force attacks while training, they brand one of their children, they mind dominate and threaten one of the Jedi, and they say that for Osha and Mae to become the leaders they have to sacrifice themselves to achieve their destiny. The Jedi never really start any conflict, and the witches keep instigating it.
The Jedi do not take children.
Hold your tongue or I cut it out for you.
Hell, the Jedi Council themselves actually say that the team shouldn't interfere and leave Osha alone, which disproves the belief that the Jedi take children against their family's will.
If we pass, they take us away. We never see Mama again.
Coral, however, is the one who amps up Mae's rage, which makes her break the door controls and start the fire. Coral tells the witches to arm themselves when Anastasia says she doesn't want conflict. When Sol and Torben infiltrate the compound after Sol senses Osha is in danger, they remain calm despite the witches' hostility, and Sol keeps Torben from drawing his lightsaber. It's Coral that readies her weapon to strike, and Torben ignites his saber to defend. Then Anastasia turns into what Sol sees as a smoke demon, and watches Mae, who he believes is Osha, also start to turn into smoke, and stabs Anastasia. Now, I've seen enough Star Wars to know that they were likely teleporting away, but Sol wouldn't know that. And Anastasia looked like a frickin' demon. I mean, just look at her. Her eyes turn black and her jaw unhinges like a snake.
We were hunted, persecuted, forced into hiding, all because some would consider our power dark, unnatural.
Coral then goes aggro on Sol while he just endures it. And when the fire that Mae started somehow causes sections of the stone fortress to blow up, Sol's first instinct is to make sure the twins are safe, while Coral smokes out and the rest of the Coven mind dominate Kalnaka and force him to try and kill Sol and Torben. Coral and the Coven make no attempt to escape or save the twins, and they should be aware that the fortress is crumbling, but all they do is spend their remaining moments to try and kill the Jedi.
I would die before I let the Jedi take my children.
Bullshit! Indara manages to free Kalnaka and the effort kills the Coven. I guess the power of many is complete rubbish. They all had to work together to dominate Kalnaka, but all it took was Indara's intervention and they all died faster than the droid army on Naboo.
The power of one. The power of two. And tonight, at the ceremony, you will experience the power of many.
Bullshit! And the tone paints this as a bad thing the Jedi did, but again, the witches are the ones who escalated the situation. And what was Indara supposed to do? Let Kalnaka keep attacking or kill him outright? Even if she did knock him out without breaking the enchantment, the witches would just possess someone else. This is how the Jedi should act, ending conflict in a pragmatic way and protecting the innocent. And yet, the mind-dominating witches are the victims.
Okay, but it seems like you're the one who killed him.
The Acolyte wants to use the witches to blur the lines between light and dark to find the grey area. Even though Star Wars and the fantasy genre has been at its core about the battle between good and evil. The only difference is that as time has gone by, what people view as good and evil has become more complicated, and thus its characterizations and conflicts change to suit those views. In the current canon, the Bendu from Star Wars Rebels is the only grey Force being that exists. Now, the light side of the Force is being balanced, being selfless, and having everlasting joy. The dark side, which is the corruption of the Force, is being selfish, angry, and constantly wanting things that bring pleasure, often at the expense of other people. So, the idea of there being a middle ground is impossible, because how can one be selfish and selfless at the same time? The Bendu, however, is neither of these things and always appears indifferent or apathetic. He doesn't actively help the heroes unless asked or if the situation affects him, and doesn't care if they live or die. He just wants to be by himself and sleep. And can we really say that these witches are in the grey when they are constantly quick to anger, encourage violent behaviour, and show off abilities that are very similar to the dark side, like mind domination? And speaking of mind domination, Anastasia is definitely her daughter's mother, because her motivations swing on a pendulum. Despite the effort put into creating Osha, demonizing the Jedi, and mind-dominating Torben to threaten the rest into leaving, Mother Anastasia listens to Osha's wishes and lets her be a Jedi. And the mind domination wasn't a reaction to Sol saying that Osha would make a good Jedi. This started the moment Torben walked in. If the writers wanted to make Anastasia the kind and understanding mother, it would have made more sense if Coral had mind-dominated Torben, since she has shown to be the most agitated and hostile.
Hold your tongue or I cut it out for you! There are only 4 Jedi. Who would miss them? Arm yourselves!
Also, the way the domination is portrayed in Torben's mind is pretty reminiscent of SUL Assault. Which, again, not painting the witches in a sympathetic light. When Sol and Torben come to collect Osha and Mae, Anastasia doesn't do anything to actively prevent the violence, like ordering her coven to stand down, or tell the Jedi that she was going to let Osha go so they wouldn't attack her. Instead, she just goads the Jedi, calling them a soulless institution, and says some vague threat that their good intentions will someday destroy them.
Someday those noble intentions you all have will destroy every Jedi in the galaxy.
Excuse me? Mr. Kettle, Mr. Pot called. He says you're black!
What? It's a turn of phrase. It has nothing to do with race.
I'm sorry, it's just, you look like a very angry black man.
Okay, now you see that? That was racist.
Anastasia could have prevented the destruction of her entire coven just by saying anything to de-escalate the situation. Dare I say she's not a very powerful leader.
Yes.
Because a powerful leader isn't strong on her own, but is able to properly command their subordinates, and Anastasia couldn't lead a conga line. Osha and Mae were born from Brendok's virgins in the Force, which makes Anakin, the chosen one born from a virgins that formed around him, destined to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force, less special. Sure, Leslie stated in an interview with Nerdist that the twins are not as powerful as him, but their birth is still too close to his timeline-wise, and it undercuts his importance. It would be like if Paul Atreides was not the Kitwat Sarak, but actually one of many who came before. And if Arthur wasn't the once and future king who pulled Excalibur, but actually the third. Or if Steve Rogers wasn't the first successful super soldier, but made in a batch of multiple super soldiers. This is the same problem with The Matrix Reloaded. Neo was never the one, but the current one. What was once unique has become trivial, which doesn't match up with the Jedi Council skepticism. Personally, I think it was all lip service to appease the already annoyed fanbase. People who defend the Acolyte will state that there have been other Force cultures in the galaxy, but have called it different names, which is fair. The problem is, the thread and the Force are too similar in their descriptions that it makes this witch culture generic and forgettable, and yet they have just enough degree of difference that they can teleport, channel a virgins to create twins, and become part of the cosmic force without dying? Okay? But creating life with the Force is something the most powerful Sith Lords of all time struggled with. Also, why would they tell the Jedi that there was no father if they wanted to keep their origins secret? Why not just say that they were born via surrogacy? And since the show takes place roughly 80 years before The Phantom Menace, Sidious and Plagueis would definitely be aware of there being a method to create life, which is a massive plot point in Anakin's turn to the dark side. Yet Disney has continued to show that they do not understand the Force and can't keep a consistent continuity.
Those fools still believe me to be the innocent Malik Blishtar. I must go out of my way to maintain my disguise. Hey everybody, I am extremely indifferent. Did you just say something? Ignore me!
Qimir is the secret antagonist of the Acolyte, and he best represents how Leslie Headland doesn't understand how to make a compelling villain. In fact, he illustrates that Leslie doesn't understand basic morality. And I'm not just saying that because she was Harvey Weinstein's assistant.
If you were in Star Wars, would you be on the light or the dark side?
Dark side.
Yeah, 100% dark side. Dark side user right here.
Why specifically?
I'm so sorry, but the dark side is cooler.
It just is. It just is. It just is.
After ruthlessly and brutally dispatching multiple Jedi and nearly killing Sol, Osha, and Mae, Qimir then acts all innocent and claims that his slaughter is justified because he wants to use his powers how he wishes. That's not how the law works. Not in Star Wars, and definitely not in real life.
I killed Jedi. I killed those who threatened my existence.
Okay.
Why do you love people who can only go so far, who can't go as deep as you can?
I don't care.
What you're feeling right now, this anger, this pain, this is who you are.
I don't need another speech by some impotent whack job whose mother didn't love him, rationalizing why he needs to conquer the universe.
If someone says that all they want is the right to kill people, they should be carted away in a straitjacket. Now remember the no good or evil meme?
I mean, the best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil. It depends on what side you're standing on, truly.
The characters in the Acolyte are written to not base their morality and ethics on what is inherently right and wrong. It is based solely on the character's desires. The writers direct which desire is the morally right one, but they don't take the time to explore and think critically about these desires and how they affect the world as a whole. Sure, Anakin wanted to save Padme dying from childbirth, but what he did was selfish because he put his happiness over the lives of the Jedi, the younglings, and the freedom of everyone in the galaxy, as it led to the Republic regressing to an empire and an evil man leading it. Luke probably did kill millions and millions of people on the Death Star, but the Death Star killed billions on Alderaan, and had it not been destroyed, the Empire would have probably killed more and stayed in power.
So he ended up being essentially very anti-establishment, which is obviously what the rebels are in Star Wars normally.
Oh, get fucked. Qimir is anti-establishment? I guess so is Hannibal Lecter, the Joker, Vade Ralph Harkonnen, Freddy Krueger, Sauron, Norman Bates, Judge Doom, Stormfront, and Voldemort. I wouldn't be surprised if Leslie thought Griffith did nothing wrong just because he looks pretty.
Dropping his billowy-legged Hakama pants, he steps forward with the sunlight accentuating his taut muscles.
The only positive thing I can say about Qimir is how well he's played by Manny Jacinto. He manages to portray both his bumbling underling and Sith Master personas with a unique degree of separation. And that's saying something considering Leslie didn't have much direction to give him.
Like Manny was sort of dropped into the middle of this story and said, okay, now you have to take over the story. Good luck, you know?
Qimir possesses cortosis, a mineral from the EU and featured in the Thrawn Alliance's novel, though incredibly rare and brittle, can negate blaster bolts and lightsaber blades, and apparently 2 pieces of cortosis metal on his head and left forearm are enough to negate a stun blast and block people from reading his mind? Don't know how that works, but I guess they're playing by Magneto rules. When I first watched this scene, I thought, this is bullshit. How come the writers knew this one thing that has never been seen before on screen, and yet they don't know Ki-Adi-Mundi's birth date? And if Qimir has a vein of this metal that can turn off lightsabers and stop stun blasts, why wouldn't he give this to Mae? It would be immensely beneficial to her goal of killing without a weapon. And it would explain why she's wearing chainmail. Actually, why doesn't she use the same metal braces to disable a lightsaber, or have her daggers be made of cortosis? In fact, Mae's training to kill a Jedi without a weapon would never work unless they were a youngling or a really inexperienced Padawan. From what I can understand, the purpose is to encourage Mae to use the Force to kill a Jedi. Why he didn't just tell her that, I don't know, and it's also to highlight some issue the Jedi have about attacking people who are defenseless, which is stupid. The Jedi may not like conflict, but they don't shy away from it when it comes, no matter who's attacking. And there have been multiple references on how to kill a Jedi, and Mae uses none of them.
If you're to succeed in combat against the best of the Jedi, you must have fear, surprise, and intimidation on your side. For if any one element is lacking, it would be best for you to retreat.
First, weapon selection is critical. If I see one more idiot attacking a Jedi with a blaster pistol, then I'll kill them myself. Select grenades, sonic screamers, cluster rockets, and plasma charges.
In fact, why make Qimir a Sith at all? Why not a dark side user whose fighting style utilizes cortosis, force powers, and hand-to-hand combat? It would distinguish these villains in the universe without breaking canon. But no, he has to be a fallen Jedi and name-drop the Sith, because how else will people watch this garbage?
What'd he say? Garbage?
The general consensus for what makes a good lightsaber duel is that it needs to have a combination of emotional stakes and decent choreography. I would add that what makes a good fight scene in Star Wars and in general fiction is that a character winning or losing isn't solely dependent on the plot. It should be dependent on their fighting style, combat skill, abilities, gear, and how competent they are at utilizing them in any given situation. Let's use Revenge of the Sith as an example since it has the most on-screen duels in any of the films. Dooku was able to take on Anakin and Obi-Wan, but eventually knocked Obi-Wan out of the fight. Anakin then turns up his aggression and overpowers Dooku. We can then infer a hierarchy of skill and power through this duel. Yet Obi-Wan defeats Anakin in their climactic battle. The reason behind both these victories were that they were written and choreographed to be believable despite the gap in power. Anakin was able to defeat Dooku because he was amped up by his aggression, and Dooku couldn't withstand the assault due to his age and fencing style of fighting. But Obi-Wan was able to defeat Anakin because he maintained a constant defense and waited for Anakin to make a mistake. The Acolyte stars and crew stated that they were aiming for Episode 5's night fight scene to match if not be better than the Duel of the Fates. So let's compare the two and I will show you that they're wrong. Though there are brief moments of decent choreography and technique, there are multiple instances throughout the night fight where Qimir is left open to attack from bystanding opponents, where they wait for their cue, purposefully miss their swing, or just blip out of existence when the camera's not on them. And when the Jedi do capitalize on a free hit, they go for a physical attack over a lightsaber strike. And it's not even when their sabers are disabled. Though Qimir does have cortosis and a hidden Shoto blade, he doesn't capitalize them often enough or in a believable way. And he doesn't integrate the metal into his fighting style to give him a distinctive moveset. When he disables two of the Jedi's blades, he doesn't use the opportunity to take them out. Also, the Jedi who have their lightsabers off never try to use the Force to defend themselves or help Yord in his clash. They could throw loose branches or stones at Qimir to keep him at a distance, and his cortosis would be useless against physical strikes. When he has his one-on-one fight with Sol, he blocks strikes that would be negated by his helmet or brace. And when his own lightsaber is disabled, he doesn't use his Shoto blade to attack, he just follows with a physical takedown which is only for shock value. There's also no consistency with the combatant's power scaling. Qimir managed to kill Karnaka. He begins his duel by force pushing all 8 Jedi away from him, and even managed to pull one into his lightsaber. Yet the combatants he struggles the most with are the one-on-one fights with Sol and Jeki's a Padawan, yet she manages to last longer than any of the 6 fully trained Jedi Knights. The only explanation to why Qimir is a threat is through explanatory dialogue, not through the visual storytelling of his technique. In fact, most of the people fighting don't have any unique movesets that make them stand out against the massive roster of lightsaber users. The only combatant that has a unique style is Jeki, which makes sense since she's the smallest, her style would match her body type. There are 3 moments in the fights against Sol, Yord, and Jeki where Qimir has the upper hand and an opportunity to kill them, but instead runs after Mae or Osha, who should be the least important people on his hit list as they are the least threatening. If he intends to kill everyone to keep his identity hidden, it would be more convenient to kill the opponents when the opportunity presents itself. There are also 2 moments where Sol just stands off camera while Jeki and Yord each take Qimir on their own and get killed. And at both instances, Sol isn't incapacitated or far away, so he's fully capable of backing them up. But the plot demands that they die, so Sol does nothing. The fight ends with Sol giving into his anger and suddenly overpowering Qimir when he previously bested 7 Jedi, only for Osha to stop him before the final strike. Osha then plants a light on Qimir for the wildlife to attack and maybe eat him. Now, I'm not saying the actors and stunt performers aren't doing their best, but the choreography is just swinging bright lightsabers around really fast and giving named characters a chance to look cool. But as the fight progresses, everyone just appears incompetent. In the Duel of the Fates, however, the choreography didn't just look cool, it was cool. Every swing looks like it's meant to hit its mark, so when a combatant blocks, it feels real, and we can infer the skill level of each character. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, though both having similar offensive fighting styles, attack in different ways. Qui-Gon is more grounded, while Obi-Wan is more acrobatic. And they utilize their teamwork to attack Maul from different sides, and even give feints to try and trick his defense and make an opening. Maul uses his saber staff to its full potential, improving his defense against 2 attackers, while also providing added leverage to his swings to mess up one opponent's footing so he can focus on the other. And whenever anyone makes a physical strike, it's usually when their blade is blocking a swing, or it's more convenient than using a lightsaber. Maul is also on the constant retreat while attempting to separate Obi-Wan from Qui-Gon with both his attacks and using the environment, as a one-on-one battle would be to his advantage, which really highlights Maul's competence in battle. Since he spent some time on Naboo before the Jedi arrived, it's likely that he planned this strategy ahead of time.
Lord Maul, be mindful. Let them make the first move.
Yes, my master.
The most pivotal moment of the duel is when the 3 are separated in the ray shield corridor, and without any lines of dialogue, the audience can get a sense for what each of them are thinking and feeling. Obi-Wan is anxious and wants to catch up to them so he can help Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon is taking the time to rest and meditate, showing his patience, but may also hint at him getting fatigued by this long engagement. And Maul is just pacing from side to side, not taking his eyes off Qui-Gon, like a predator ready to snatch his meal. When the battle starts back up, the score is absent, and Obi-Wan just misses his opportunity to reach them. Though Qui-Gon is a Jedi Master and should be able to take on a Sith Lord, he's getting slower, he's taking more breaks between sequences, and Obi-Wan is appearing more and more worried with each passing second, creating this sense of dread. Maul then dispatches Qui-Gon by stunning him with a hilt strike and stabbing him through the chest. Obi-Wan's scream and visible hatred is all that is needed to know what's going through his mind. Though Obi-Wan is young, fast, and even managed to damage Maul's saber staff, he still can't beat him, as he is pushed into a seemingly bottomless pit. The only complaint I have about this duel is how Obi-Wan beats Maul. Maul fully sees Obi-Wan launch up and over him, but doesn't take a swing with his saber. However, I appreciate the visual storytelling of Obi-Wan calming his emotions before leaping, which confuses Maul, and using his master's lightsaber to end the duel, symbolizing his transition from student to teacher. This battle would also impact the entire trilogy, as Qui-Gon was depicted as the perfect teacher and father figure for Anakin, and could have kept him from turning to the dark side, but it also affected Obi-Wan's fighting style. His technique started out as very acrobatic and offensive, but after his master's death, and as the trilogy progressed, he became a defensive fighter, because he realized it doesn't matter how strong or skilled a Force user is, all it takes is one mistake for you to lose a limb. And this mentality is what led to his victories against Grievous and Anakin 13 years later.
Hey, Carl! What have you done with me restaurant?
Look around you. Our customers are quite content with the contrived and the mediocre.
That's because they don't know what they're eating. Excuse me, ma'am. Do you know what's in that Krabby Patty you're eating?
No.
Before and after the show aired, Kennedy stated that the Acolyte's negative reviews were because of how the fan base is male-dominated and they dislike women-led Star Wars projects. This narrative has been perpetuated by studios since 2016. A film or TV show has a diverse cast. They use diversity as part of their marketing plan, instead of promoting the creators, stars, or the premise of the project itself. And when the project underperforms, the studio or creator blame the audience, claiming that they're bigots, in an attempt to guilt them into watching the project, only for the audience to be proven right and the studio to lose credibility. Now, imagine this cycle continues for another 10 years. What's going to happen is that the general audience is going to see through the lie and not watch any project that promotes diversity, but it also risks illegitimizing real cases of bigotry in the industry. Because of course bigots exist in the world we live in. I can never say they don't. But general audiences are probably not going to put in the time to research if an actor or director got let go of a production because they were discriminated against or they were just bad at their job. It's the boy who cried wolf. I'd wager the real reason for the negativity, aside from all the points I just made previously, is that the fan base, both male and female, are just fed up with the mediocrity that Lucasfilm has been giving them and want something that's worth a subscription payment.
No, the only way out of this hole is to keep digging.
That's not how holes work. Title your sex tape.
Leslie, a big question for you. So this is Acolyte Season 1. If you could snap your fingers and get the amount of seasons that you think would tell your complete story for these characters, how many seasons would you get?
At least 3. At least, yeah. I mean, I'd love to keep doing it forever.
There's an old folktale called The Emperor's New Clothes that best represents Disney Star Wars and the Acolyte specifically. It's about an emperor who is obsessed with fancy clothes and spends his funds on them in the expense of state matters. 2 con men come to the emperor, posing as weavers, and offer to make him clothes that appear invisible to those who are incompetent or stupid. Over the course of their looming, the emperor and some officials see no threads being woven, but don't say anything. When the conmen say they're finished, they mime dress the emperor and he sets off to the city. The townspeople see the naked emperor, but don't say anything because they don't want to appear stupid, until a child blurts out that the emperor isn't wearing anything. The townspeople realize they were fooled, but the emperor continues to walk, now with more pride, believing everyone else to be stupid. The story refers to the idea of something being accepted as praiseworthy due to the general population being unwilling to criticize it, or being seen as going against popular opinion. In a project of this size, with a budget of $180 million, no one thought about how broken everything was. Not when it was pitched, not in the writer's room, not during the production, not when the actors had to talk about the show to the press, or when it was being torn apart by YouTubers. Over the course of the Acolyte's release, there was some discourse over social media about how if you liked or disliked the show, you weren't a real Star Wars fan. I try my best not to insult people for what they like. I only critique the project I'm reviewing and those writing them, and though I might get a little upset at certain things, I never want to make the spectators think it's directed at them. My stance on this show is the Acolyte is not worth your time or loyalty. Don't watch it. Because the studio executives, they don't care about individual critiques and nitpicks that could genuinely make their next projects better. If they did, they would have course corrected after Rise of Skywalker. What they do care about is their profits. So if you want real change, stop feeding them. Go watch Andor, or Shogun, or House of the Dragon, or X-Men 97. Go watch Spectacular Spider-Man. They deserve your time.
So my character, you know, she's a powerful leader. She's a powerful leader. Yes, yes.
I told you we cannot use violence.
And I told you I would die before I let the Jedi take my children.